All right. The Dallas Cowboys, Dak played about as well as he has played in the last 10 games, certainly against the talented Chargers defense. Not a good one, not a well-coached one, but a talented one. And so Dak throws for about 240 yards, a touchdown, couple of big throws on that final drive. Brandon Cooks delivered tonight. And Matt Mosley, of course, you know Matt's been a friend of the volume for a long time. There's so many different areas to go, but let's start with Dak. He had better protection most of the night. I thought he and Gallup don't work. It's clearly CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks tonight felt like he sort of arrived in this offense. But I thought Dak played pretty well. That fair?
I think it's fair. I mean, I think had it gone the other direction, we'd be talking about that throw to Pollard. I mean, That wheel route with Pollard was wide open. And I know Troy was trying to make the argument maybe Murray did something there. I don't really think there was much there. So he misses a wide open throw to kind of end the game there. But for the most part, you're right. I mean, I would still say this offense looks weird because the only time it really works is when he escapes. So He makes the huge play to Pollard. They have a missed tackle. Pollard makes a nice play and goes for 60. But in terms of like the timing of this so-called Texas Coast offense, there's no real timing. Like Dak kind of has to go make plays. For it to happen. Now, the good news is he made them.
Yes.
I mean, he looked awful the week before. All the interceptions and everything. He ran. I think he plays so much better when they get him running the football and on that RPO where he keeps it for the 18-yard touchdown. Like, that's huge for his confidence, the team. Everybody kind of feeds off that.
Yeah, I think Dak knows what he is more than we give him credit for. Dak is not a brilliant pocket passer. And I think Dak knows it. Dak's at his best. I thought the Cowboys were hyper aggressive and ran him in the first half, first couple series. They went out of their way to say, and Aikman said this in the pregame. He said, I think you're going to like what you see from the Cowboys tonight. He'd obviously had some intel. I think they made it a mission tonight. We're going to run Dak. We're going to have Dak run more. And I think he's more successful that way. There are people that are natural runners, Lamar, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. And then there are people that are just what I would call they run to escape, but they're like Russell Wilson and Dak kind of run to escape. But at times, I think they're more effective out of the pocket. I think Lamar is a better thrower in the pocket than people give him credit for. I think Josh is great in the pocket. I think Jalen Hurts is better in the pocket. I think Dak and Russell Wilson are okay guys in the pocket. I just think they're okay. So I think Dak, to your point, it is interesting. If I said to you the game featured two teams with no chance to win a Super Bowl for the same reason, 20 total penalties, 11 on Dallas, 9 on the Chargers, neither one of these teams looks well coached. That was my takeaway tonight. Third down defense for the Chargers. As a whole, basic offsides for the Cowboys, motion penalties. These teams did not look well coached to me tonight.
No, the Cowboys continue to be undisciplined, on both sides, on the defensive line. You're right, where they line up. Back to Dak a little bit. Your point about the pocket is interesting. He was kind of still in the pocket. Like his best throw of the night might have been when he was backing up, which generally it's interesting. You don't want your quarterback going back there other than like Mahomes or Josh Allen or somebody and throwing kind of off their back foot. And yet the best touch he put on a ball was that throw to Cooks in the end zone where he's backing up and he's going and he puts a gorgeous ball on that. So he has the ability. I agree. I mean, I think first of all, you still wasn't that interesting that you had Kellen Moore on the other sideline and you had both teams bogging down, got down there in the red zone, didn't really have a great plan for what they were going to do, to which I was like, both Dallas's offenses look pretty bad in the red zone.
Right. It's interesting. When I look at this game overall, I thought my biggest takeaway was the Dallas defensive front basically manipulated the Chargers O-line. I think the Chargers had 6 holding calls. Herbert almost never had a clean pocket. Therefore, he rushed it by the second quarter, missing open throws. Justin Herbert's a very good quarterback. But I think what happens in games sometimes is that when you get hit early, even if you don't get sacked, and you have to rush the throws, you start doing that automatically. You just hurry things up. And I thought they got Herbert out of rhythm by their pressure. I mean, he was running for his life for the first half. They settled down a little in the second. But I think my big picture in the entire takeaway is the Chargers on occasion elected to block Micah one-on-one. Dumb, ineffective, huge trouble. But overall, if I'm flying back to Dallas tonight, the Cowboys, I feel like our defensive front, not McCarthy, our defensive front really controlled the football game.
I think that's right. I thought Adigizua played brilliantly. I thought he controlled, and I think Kellen Moore thought, I've got to go with the run. I cannot abandon the run game at all. And it really wasn't there. And then to your point, like 77 over on the left side. I mean, that was interesting what they said about Micah. He's like, well, he respects Slater. So he's not going to line up there the whole night. He's going to go to the other side. And think about how badly do you have to be holding to get called on one of those quick running plays. They run Eckler over the left side, and 77 gets caught in there because it was so incredibly obvious because he has a wrestling move where he took the guy to the ground. And boy, we had our Leon Lett moment in this game where the Cowboys player inexplicably, I guess, thought the ball was touched by his teammates and slides in there at the last minute, Jalen Tolbert, and lived to tell about it. I mean, that really was Cowboys do some boneheaded things, but there's a second-year player that decides to come diving in after a football and hands it back to the Chargers. I mean, the Cowboys tried to give them that game.
Oh, no question. And the Chargers, the Dallas was the better team tonight and tried to give it away. The Chargers they really do have some good players. But when you live in Los Angeles, and I know they're not a national team, they're barely a popular regional team or a Los Angeles team. But with Brandon Staley being a defensive coordinator, like Matt Eberflus in Chicago, you're like, well, why is the defense so bad? The Chargers have more money on the defensive side than any team in the league. Khalil Mack and Bosa, Derwin James. They whiffed on a cornerback acquisition, but they have active linebackers. The Chargers spend a ton on defense, 2 elite rush ends, have a defensive coach, and are as bad on 4th and 3rd and long as any defense in the league. So at least Dallas can say, hey, we have an offensive coach. Dak had one of his best games. Brandon Cooks was involved. I mean, I look at Dallas and I thought their O-line play, by and large, Dak had a more comfortable pocket. Dak had a good game. They had a game plan. They moved Dak early. I felt like there was a plan by Dallas. Meanwhile, the Chargers off a bye week. No trick plays. What was the game plan? Maybe the Cowboys D-line blew it up, but I didn't see anything.
Can we talk about what McCarthy was doing at the end of the first half? Like when even the clock operator thought, well, most any coach ever will stop the clock here with a timeout and take a shot at the end zone with 8 seconds left. And McCarthy's over there. No, I didn't call a timeout. Wind this clock down for me. And they come back from a break. The broadcasters, everybody doing the game was like completely confused. You know, like, did we miss a play? What happened here? And McCarthy, because they stopped the clock, they had to get it down to 3 because McCarthy didn't want to take a shot at the end zone. I mean, like, imagine that, being a play caller, an offensive guy, and you've got so little confidence in your guy or your offense that you're like, I do not want to see a ball go in the end zone from the 18-yard line, wherever they were. They're going to take a rip at the end zone. And he's like, no, I would rather – I've got CeeDee Lamb. I got all these folks. I'd rather just kick this thing and make sure we go in 10-7. I mean, you have one young head coach who's kind of trying – that's probably lucky to still have a job. and then you have one coach who's kind of trying to extend his career, and they both did some baffling things. But Mike wants to be Mr. Go for it on fourth down, but then he wants to get down there and like not even take a shot and then settle for the field goal. So I mean, you got some weird stuff going on in that game.
Yeah, 20 penalties. I thought Dallas, the better team, almost gave it away. I thought these were I looked at these two teams and I thought those teams can't win a Super Bowl. They literally beat themselves. Philadelphia is still trying to find their offensive identity, but I never think they're poorly coached. Kansas City's trying to figure out their receiving core. They're well coached. Detroit, Dan Campbell may be goofy. They look well coached. Jacksonville Jacksonville and Baltimore led the NFL in drops early. And then you watch them last couple of weeks, you're like, oh, those are well coached teams. Mm-hmm. I felt like I watched two poorly coached teams. The Chargers O-line basically limited anything Herbert could do. The Cowboys had silly penalties. My takeaway at the end of the half on that was that between Mike McCarthy saying in the offseason, we want to run the ball, and that play call, Mike McCarthy does not trust Dak. And I thought tonight Dak was as trustable as he's been all year. He played well.
Mm-hmm. He had one easy throw late that, like they were talking about, like Troy was talking about, you kind of hope he was throwing that ball away, because if he's on target, it's a pick six and the game ends. Yeah. So there's always a real curious thing that he does. I mean, you can't miss that throw to Pollard. Like you can't, like, just the game's over and he's running wide open. You can't miss that. But he was better, and they were 42-10. And by the way, I didn't know why the Eagles were throwing there on third down at the end of that game. I mean, I agree they're a well-coached team and everything, and maybe they have such trust in Jalen, but you got to know who you're playing against. I mean, look who the quarterback is on the other team. And that's one time, I know sometimes we celebrate guys who go for it on fourth down. Why in the world don't you punt that ball and make that guy? I mean, Zach, he's got to go like 80 or 90 yards. You like feel great about that? I mean, to me, the Eagles did sort of kind of give that game away at the end. And by the way, that made Jerry has a whole new outlook on life, because it was like the 49ers lost and the Eagles lost, and Jerry's now back to, hey, we're one game back. We got the Eagles coming up. We can get right back in this division race. And so it's in his mind, it's like that 49ers game never happened.
Listen, we've all had fender benders in our life. Sometimes it's even more serious. But even if it's somebody else's mistake, you can lean on Morgan & Morgan. It's the nation's largest injury law firm. 100 offices and over 800 lawyers. With over $15 billion, that to be $1 billion recovered, Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting for you to get full and fair compensation. Submit an injury claim with Morgan & Morgan. It's really, really easy. It's almost like a quarterback, an offensive head coach, and a GM that gets some good weapons makes their life easier. We all need somebody, good or bad days, to make our life a little easier. That's what Morgan & Morgan does. If you're ever injured, check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/Colin or dial pound LAW, that's pound 529, from your cell phone. This is a paid advertisement. The NFL season, it's going strong. And DraftKings Sportsbook hooking new customers up with an offer even stronger. Bet $5, that's it, on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. How easy is that? And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game this October. Get in on the action. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. The code is Colin, COLIN. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you just bet $5 on the National Football League. That easy. That's the code Colin, Colin, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. For a limited time, Verizon customers can get Netflix and NFL Plus for just $25 a month. It's called Plus Play. That's $120 in annual savings. Plus Play is a platform where Verizon customers can shop, manage, and save on the subscriptions that you already love, right? Like Netflix and NFL Plus. With NFL Plus Premium, you get access to live games on mobile, my fave, NFL Red Zone, NFL Network, and more. Just go to Verizon.com/plusplay. Verizon.com/plusplay to save on Netflix and NFL Plus today for a limited time only now. Limited time only. I look at the Niners. I look at the Eagles. Buffalo has scuffed it. I think in the NFL, Thanksgiving, half the league is done by Thanksgiving. And then the second half of the league almost feels like it takes a leap in Thanksgiving. I do feel like, and I've felt this for some time, as the league becomes more quarterback centric, I do believe there's a big separation between the haves and have-nots in the NFL. I see now on a weekly basis 3 lines of 9, 10, 11, 12-point favorites. That's very collegiate. And I think if you just don't have a quarterback, you don't have a shot. And I never felt that in the 60s, 70s. Well, I'll say this, the late 70s, 80s, 90s, 10 years ago, that you could win with Tannehill, a great run game. About 7 years ago, I felt like defense, Tannehill, they became a number 1 seed. Boy, I start looking around to these. I mean, go right now and look around the divisions. Hurts and Dak lead their division. Brock Purdy and Stafford, are near the top of theirs. Jared Goff, best quarterback in his division, leads his. Josh Allen and Tua. Here comes Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Trevor Lawrence leads his, and Patrick Mahomes leads his. And I feel like you can say what you want about Dak, and I've always thought he's a B to a B-plus quarterback. But if you start looking around this league right now, Matt, there's about 7 really elite quarterbacks, and then Dak's in the next group, and it falls off a cliff by about Brock Purdy at 13, 14. It falls off a cliff. There's a lot of ugly. Hell, I would say that rookie down in Houston right now, CJ Stroud, has been a revelation. I mean, he may be like 13, 14. So I think if you're Dallas today, you could say this. We just went and physically pushed around a team that many regard, playoff team last year, many regard as one of the more talented in football. That should be a happy flight home. How will it play in Dallas radio and Dallas tomorrow?
Well, for once, we're all like on the Rangers, right? This is feeling like a baseball town because they've gone up 2-0 on the Astros, and this is the first time they've ever faced off in the postseason. But tonight, I mean, the ratings will bear it out. I mean, it was people will be excited about the Cowboys, and I think McCarthy, there's still a lack of trust in him. I think they won the game, so that end of the first half thing becomes a little bit less of a story. I mean, if they lose that game, especially on a special teams gaffe, they would have just been lit up. But now at 4-2, I think people, feel okay about them, and they can get right there in this division race. And that's why it's just crazy from week to week. I mean, you go from thinking the Eagles are like going to run away with the division and maybe vying for like best team in football to like, what happened? What was that? Why couldn't they? And it reminds Dallas fans that other quarterbacks throw interceptions, right? You have a tendency in your city to go, this is the only quarterback who throws picks, right? And Hurts threw some picks and threw a horrible one in the end of the game, which set up an inferior team and allowed them to win the game. And they didn't have to do that. So I think to your point on Dak, this just sort of calms folks down because what's hanging over everything is the fact that they have to turn around soon and pay him $50 million a year. Or try to see what they have in Trey Lance, figure something out. But the truth is, this kind of that whole Dak's future hangs over everything. So,
Matt, will they make a move at the trade deadline? Is there anything like running back depth? Their O-line played pretty well tonight. Brandon Cooks, I do feel like they could use a burst at tight end. They don't get much production from tight end. Will they make a move at the trade deadline, the Cowboys, you think?
They'll look. I mean, they've made big wide receiver moves before. I honestly think they would be looking for safety or cornerback help.
Okay.
Because as much as they like Gilmore and you see Bland playing well, it's just like without Diggs, Jordan Lewis is coming back from an injury, and he looks a little slow right now. He's trailing a lot of plays. I think they could use some help. They're playing safeties at linebacker, right? Van Der Esch is out, and that was a good player tonight. 14, you saw on Marquise Bell. That's a safety, though. He's having to – Damon Clark and Marquise Bell are both – they're having to play linebacker. Marquise had moved to linebacker, but he's playing linebacker at about 215. So they need some reinforcements they could use. They've got Donovan Wilson's a good player. Kerr's pretty good player. But you see them from a speed standpoint, if you put some of those guys in space, they're in big trouble, right? They ran a very basic – they put a receiver in motion. Wasn't it Keenan Allen? They literally put Keenan Allen in motion, and like they got lost. It wasn't even like, oh, there's a pick play. They just got lost in motion. Like the defensive back never arrived. And that's the easiest thing in the world, which makes you think, okay, how does Kellen Moore in that offense foul it up when at times in that game it looks so incredibly easy, to get it done down there in the red zone. I mean, both teams really, in some ways struggled in that area tonight.
I thought the thing you said early in our 30-minute pod here that makes a lot of sense. Instead of the West Coast, they call it the Texas Toast offense. What do they call it? What's Dallas calling their offense?
Texas Coast. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That really the Dallas plays of note tonight were essentially Dak flushed out of the pocket. And when you watch Dallas tonight, it really was a Dak virtuoso performance. It really was. It wasn't about a clever. I wrote down for Dallas. I did write early. There was a clever play early for Dallas. Where did I see it at? Hold on, guys. This is a podcast. I'm looking. Chargers clever opening drive. But your point early was that Dak's elusiveness and mobility really was the offense tonight. Almost every big play was based on that. And so 18 for 24, 238 and a touchdown. If you're a Dak fan, I've always said he's Kirk Cousins with a better brand. I think there's limitations to what he can do, but he's certainly a franchise guy. Good. I think his intangibles have always been better than his tangibles. I don't think he's a great thrower of the football, but I think you're right. I think Dak and Greg Cosell's been saying he's been reduced to a pocket passer. It's almost like McCarthy said, you know what? We're going to make a point to get him out tonight. Yeah. And it worked.
Yeah. The run was good. And to your point, he just kept like escaping. Some of his escapes were kind of Romo-esque. And he was Romo used to do the pirouette and kind of sneak out the backside. And he would do that. And he looked nimble. At times after the ankle injury, being banged up, not having a strong base, he's played and looked stiff. Tonight, at times, he looked kind of nimble. And when he goes out and leads the team with like a run, the thing that maybe some people miss about Dak is that from the intangible standpoint, his teammates feed off of him like crazy. Now, CD left him last week. CD got his head down and went kind of some old TO type stuff. And I'm not talking about going crazy on the sideline, but it was just kind of like he kind of tapped out on him and they had to all talk. Like Mike had to go to CD And Dak had to go to CD and basically say, hey, come to me. Don't be doing all that other stuff. And I think that kind of helped kind of get CD focused. And then to your point, Cooks. It's kind of like the Cowboys had to go, wait, we brought Cooks in. Do y'all remember we traded for him? And he runs nice routes. And he was in on a big that was a great throw late that Dak made. They needed it on 3rd and 9, and he goes back, hits the back foot, and he just lets it rip. And I think that was Cooks on that one. And it was a gorgeous ball, and it was like one of the biggest throws of the night because it gave him a first down.
Yes.
And it allowed him. And I really thought McCarthy was looking to maybe when about 3 minutes left, Colin was looking to like kick on 2nd down. Okay. Just kind of just go ahead and get it over with. Yeah.
I have that Cooks written down. CD and then Cooks. Then I have multiple penalties by Dallas. Again, I think we've touched on this. It multiple times tonight. I felt like Dallas was getting in their own way. So, okay, Cowboys win. What are they, 4-2 now? They have to feel good on the Philadelphia loss. I think San Francisco, Detroit, Philadelphia. Maybe we can insert now Dallas into that 4th NFC team. Saints, forget it. I watched Derek Carr this weekend. I'm over. I've defended him for years. I'm done with it. All right, Matt, it's good seeing you again. Always a pleasure to see you. Text as often as you'd like. We need to sit and talk off the air as well sometime, buddy.
Would like to do that. And if you'll fax me these notes from the games that you keep alluding to, I'd love to see some of those. I really think I could. Yeah, I could really get some. Oh, that's good stuff. Yeah.
Not really.
Please.
All right, buddy.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.